In the middle of one of the bloodiest conflicts in history, suddenly the fighting stopped, and the enemies became friends. But what really happened in the unbelievable Christmas Truce of 1914? What if those few hours of peace had turned into a complete ceasefire, and the war had ended by Christmas? Keep watching to find out. So it was 1914, and the war drums were pounding. Everyone was hoping for a miracle, that the war might just pack its bags and leave by Christmas. But reality check, wars don't exactly follow a festive calendar. The war raged on, and by Christmas night, the trenches were anything but silent. But hold on to your Santa hats, because here comes the twist. A temporary truce on the Western Front. Yep, you heard it right. Imagine soldiers from both sides, guns laid down, stepping cautiously into no man's land. It doesn't even sound real. Now, this Christmas truce wasn't some Hollywood creation. It was as real as it gets. Men from Britain and Germany, sworn enemies just hours ago, were singing carols, exchanging gifts, and maybe even sharing a laugh or two. It's the kind of stuff you'd think only happens in feel-good movies. But nope, it happened in the mud and cold of World War I. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? The higher-ups weren't having any of it. Generals caught wind of this festive fraternization with the enemy, and faster than you can say jingle bells, the war was back on. Christmas came and went, and so did the hopes of an early end to the conflict. During the truce, though, many personal cameras captured moments in the trenches, providing solid evidence of the extraordinary situation. Despite its limited impact on the war's overall direction, the Christmas truce became a legendary event, making appearances in films and songs and becoming a symbol of unexpected peace. But what if the war had ended because of the truce? What could have happened differently? Let's try to imagine this timeline by zooming in on a potential turning point. After the First Battle of Marne, the German advance could have gotten a hard stop, a defeat so glaring that even top generals had to break the news to the Kaiser. The war would be pretty much lost for Germany. Falling into trench warfare, that was the last thing they needed. In this alternative timeline, the cracks would start to show. German morale in 1914 would take a nosedive, and the upper command wouldn't be enthusiastic about another advance into the West. Now, if you're familiar with World War I, you'd know this is pushing the boundaries of realism. All the factions in the war were pretty delusional about their chances. So here's another alternate timeline, the least plausible scenario of all, even more unlikely than an early victory or soldiers getting immunity. Germany ended up listening to their diplomats more than their generals. And hold on, France does the same. The result? An unexpected permanent ceasefire. Okay, fine, so none of this actually happened. But what did happen during the Christmas truce at least wasn't so bad. Being on the front line, about 300 yards from the Germans, the soldiers engaged in carol singing and light banter on Christmas Eve. In the silence of the trenches, a noise caught one soldier's attention around 10 p.m. The Germans, celebrating Christmas Eve, were singing carols, prompting some British soldiers to respond in kind. The unexpected happened when a German soldier shouted an invitation in English, suggesting both sides meet in no man's land. A British sergeant proposed meeting halfway, and what transpired next was nothing short of astonishing. Enemy soldiers cautiously emerged from their trenches, meeting at the barbed wire-filled no man's land that typically separated them. Where bullets once streaked, there were now handshakes and words of kindness. Soldiers exchanged songs, tobacco, and wine, creating an impromptu holiday celebration on the cold night. It's not hard to guess how the truce came to be. The soldiers were facing harsh winter conditions with rain, frost, and terrible living conditions. The weather was a major headache for everyone. The rain had turned trenches into mini swimming pools, and the mud was like quicksand. That's why the Christmas truce made a lot of sense at the time. See, small truces were already popping up every day. Soldiers on the front lines found that ignoring each other now and then made life a bit safer and calmer. They'd even shout across the trenches and sometimes just let each other be. Both British and German troops in opposing trenches found opportunities to communicate, usually in the form of insults. However, by Christmas, they'd start communicating in more friendly terms, with Germans singing carols and setting up Christmas trees. Gifts from home were pouring in: cigars, chocolates, and even winter clothing. Sounds awesome, right? Well, there was a slight problem. Where do you put all these goodies when you're living in a trench? First-hand accounts from soldiers' diaries and letters vividly describe the camaraderie. The ceasefires, unauthorized and small-scale, lacked a precise count of participants, but estimates suggest as many as 100,000 people took part in these mini ceasefires. But not every truce ended well, with one account telling of Private Percy Huggins killed during a truce, leading to more bloodshed. Despite the challenges, that Christmas Eve night was surprisingly peaceful. On Christmas Day, both sides were cautiously walking around, and some even played football together. This event wasn't confined to a single battlefield. Small ceasefires occurred across the Western Front, and reports suggested similar incidents on the Eastern Front. French, German, Belgian, and British troops engaged in unofficial truces, providing a brief respite from the hellish conditions they endured. While some parts of the front line shared camaraderie, others were a bit confused or simply didn't feel like socializing. In a few areas, soldiers even fired upon those attempting a truce, highlighting the varied reactions to this unusual event. The Christmas Truce challenged the perception of German soldiers as ruthless enemies and grabbed the media's attention with letters and photos making their way back home. It also showed that people want nothing more than to celebrate and to be with their loved ones. Truces were arranged on both Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, some even specifying when they would end. The arrival of miniature Christmas trees in German trenches sparked truces along many parts of the front line. Laughter and jokes echoed from both friendly and enemy trenches, accompanied by requests not to fire. Shadows of soldiers gathered in no man's land, exchanging gifts and sharing moments of joy. Amidst the festivities, there was also a somber note, as both sides seized the chance to bury their fallen comrades properly. The Christmas Truce defied the perception of German soldiers as ruthless enemies and gained media attention with letters and photographs reaching home. Personal cameras captured moments in the trenches during the truce, providing undeniable evidence. Sadly, the truce was only seen as a brief interruption in the war's standard narrative, conflicting with the required patriotic aggression. Over time, doubts and confusion arose about the truce's authenticity, but the letters and photos solidified its reality. That Christmas truce was a one-of-a-kind event during World War I, not happening on the same scale again. Interventions from high command made sure that such friendly interactions wouldn't repeat, and as the war rolled on, centralized command and new tactics discouraged these moments of peace. Today, a memorial at England's National Memorial Arboretum commemorates the Christmas truce. And in 2014, on the 100th anniversary, the English and German national soccer teams played a friendly match in remembrance of the impromptu soccer games in 1914. For the remainder of World War I, which claimed around 15 million lives, Christmas truces did not repeat. Yet the memories of those unique holiday gatherings served as an important reminder that wars are fought by human beings, not just forces. The lasting legacy resides in those incredible photographs and interviews, capturing a moment that many still find hard to believe. That's all for the Christmas Truce. Thanks for tuning in, and if you want to catch more awesome content like this, make sure to click on the next video.